Gents, I just want to pause the episode for a moment to let you know about the Strong Men of Value Academy. You will have heard me refer to it a number of times, and I want to bring more attention to it. So this isn't just a program, it's a life-changing environment and community of men who are focused on personal and professional growth. We're looking at areas of relationships, wealth, and health, things to help you thrive and maximize your life. Imagine having bi-monthly one-on-one coaching sessions with myself, weekly group coaching calls, and an incredible brotherhood of high achievers by your side. Now we're diving into resilience, leadership, and holistic growth to not just succeed in your career, but to thrive in your health and your relationships. Your journey to greatness, it starts here. So join the movement and you can apply for the Strong Men of Value Academy. You can head to themanthatcanproject.com to find out more.
You're listening to The Man That Can Project with Lachlan Stuart, a global movement created to empower men and open up what's really going through their minds by having real and raw conversations about life's unique challenges and our individual ways of processing it all. Welcome to The Man That Can Project.
All right, Jen. So before we dive into today's episode, which is going to be an absolute belter, because I've already had the conversation, I want to remind you guys, if you haven't heard about the Man That Can Project Inner Circle, right? It's a program where you can create more momentum in your life and have the support and the game plan to move forward and get the results that you want, plus be a part of an incredible community. So you can find out more about that at the website, themanthatcanproject.com/inner circle. So make sure you go check it out if you're ready to create some more momentum in your life. As for that, let's dive into the next episode. Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Man That Can Project podcast. Today's guest, Sam Hardy. Welcome, mate. I think I can shake your hands.
That's okay. We'll
see what happens. It's very exciting to have you on here, mate. We've known each other.
A little.
I don't know. Time goes so fast.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's a prolonged period between Christmas and New Year's
this
year, like where you just don't know what day it is. It's all over the shop.
But let's say a while. We've known each other for a while.
We started doing work last year, I think in April or May. Yeah.
So about 18 months.
Yeah, about 18 months now.
And I'm very excited to have you on the show today. I know the guys are going to get a lot of value. What we were just talking about behind the scenes is obviously finances, which I'd love to have you back on to talk about that. But today we're going to be talking about your experience this year from not drinking alcohol and what you've learned from that experience, why you went into doing that, and also how much money it saved you. But it's an impressive thing. Like every time you sort of drop a message in the Man That Can Facebook group about how many days you're down, it's like, that's awesome, because to do it is challenging, I could imagine.
Yeah, and the response from the group is actually really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Like, there are some days where you go, fuck, I'd murder a drink right now, especially with I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, so there's obviously times where you would like to drink, but you definitely know you got a good support network in the Man That Can project. So definitely helps when you put those things up and you get some really positive responses.
Well, it's inspiring for us. Like, even when I see it, like I did 3 months or 3 and a bit months at the start of the year.
Yeah.
And then you just kicked on with it, and I was like, "You awesome!" Like, because for me, it's like the sun's out, sun on your back. You want a beer, and not only for yourself. Obviously, you're a husband, father, businessman. Like, you've got a lot of stuff going on in your life, which a lot of people turn to alcohol as like, I need to just chill out for the arvo. It's been a stressful week.
Yeah.
And you've got plenty of, I guess, excuses up your sleeve, but you haven't caved. It's been very, very inspiring.
I haven't caved. So I'm at 7 months today, actually. And
that's unreal, mate. That is quality.
And from a disclosure point of view, it's $7,525 in direct alcohol spend saved. So breaking that down, I would have averaged a bottle of wine a day during the week, like just coming home and it being my ritual. Nick would maybe have a glass, my wife, and I would have the rest of the bottle.
And what was your favourite wine, just while we're on that?
Not morning. in the summertime, it was always an AIX Rosé.
Yeah.
We used to buy them by the case.
Yeah.
In the winter time, it was a Henders Shiraz was nice in the evening.
And the mornings?
Scotch.
Yeah.
Because it was probably a kick on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would drink about... we would average a bottle of wine with it 90% going to me. And then if we were going out for dinner, like I would always start with 2 Belvedere Martini dry with a twist of lemon. We'd have a bottle of wine, and then I'd probably have 1 or 2 scotches on the end of it. So typically our drinks bill was like $160 at dinner time with that.
Yep.
And it was funny, like my first time I went out for dinner after not drinking, I thought they fucked the bill up because I was like, I've never gone out for like 10 years and it'd be so cheap to go and eat at a nice restaurant. So yeah, it turns out it's actually it's a lot more cost effective than what I initially thought.
It's phenomenal. You don't realize how much it tacks on, and then obviously when you're drinking, for me, I know I like to have burritos
Yeah, you eat shit. So I would think with Ubers and everything, that $7.5 is probably closer to 13 over the same period.
Think about what you could do with an extra $13,000, and this, that, and we're 7 months in, right? Not even 12 months. So let's say close to 20 by 12 months. Probably
a little over 20 by 12, I would think. But as we were saying before, like I don't ever think that money shouldn't be the motivation for doing this, because like I said, you'll find it, like if you wanted to, you could go out and buy a new watch, or you could find a way to spend this money pretty easily. So I don't necessarily think money should be the motivation
as to why you're stopping drinking
to do it.
It was like you were cutting, and I guess we can sort of tie the financial chat we had in before to this, and then we'll go back to why you stopped drinking and all that sort of stuff. But you were saying before you put your finances into like a 60, 15, 15, 10 split.
Yeah.
If that's right. Yep. And if you're 60%, which is obviously your daily, like your
our essentials.
Yeah, your essential stuff. If the alcohol doesn't fit into that or fit under that, then you got to, it doesn't happen, or you sacrifice other aspects of your life.
Yeah. And like with my journey with alcohol, like I would try and do different limitations on it. Like when you and I and Nicole went for lunch last year, I drank at lunch knowing that I owed you 200 burpees the next morning.
Yep.
So
you enjoyed it.
Yeah. And like you can always make, there was obviously a problem with my relationship with alcohol. And so I'd make excuses, or I'd go, well, I can drink 3 days a week. I've only got 2 things on next week, so I'll drink 4 days this week. So I had trouble managing the discipline around the limitation.
Yep.
So that's why going cold turkey and just trying to what started as like, I was only going to do it for 2 months, but I kind of started to feel pretty good about 6 weeks into it.
Yep.
So I was like, well, let's just keep this going. So I definitely had trouble managing when I'd set limits on myself with it.
Yep.
To the point where I wouldn't manage it at all. I'd prefer to do the 200 burpees the next morning.
Oh mate, that video Nick sent me through of you doing burpees was awesome. It made me feel real good. I knew how bad you probably felt, but you powered through and kept your word, which was awesome.
Yeah.
But for you, like winding it back, like what, do you feel it was a problem for you? Because
yeah, I would traditionally, I'd always joke that I don't know why wine bottles have screw caps. Because like if we were opening a bottle of wine in our house, it was getting finished. There was I was never really one, and this probably and this would stem back from like early in my career. So as a bit of perspective, like I started my career on a currency desk with an investment bank, and it was a really, really hard lifestyle. Yep. So, and because my parents weren't big drinkers.
Yep.
So you never, like, I could count on one hand how many times I would have seen my dad pissed in his life.
Yeah, right.
So he was never a big drinker. I think I've seen my mum drunk when she fell off the back of the boat once.
Right.
So it wasn't in my upbringing to see people drinking like quite, every night. So I went into a world where it was a really, really stressful environment, and it was the way that my bosses would unwind. We'd go to the pub across the road at the Vault, after work. I moved to North America. It probably was even bigger part of the culture there. Well, maybe not so, but it was a big part of the culture as well there, where you'd go out after work. You know, you'd get off the desk at 6 o'clock. You'd go out till 9 o'clock, have, you know, a few vodkas, a couple of wines, like, and by that, you know, probably about 10 to 12 standard drinks. And then you'd go home, have dinner, go to sleep, back at the office at 6 o'clock in the morning. So
I have no idea how you did that. Do you reckon you just became conditioned to that?
I think you just become conditioned to it. But right now, after not drinking for 7 months, and it's funny, there was an article that I read on news.com by I can't remember his last name, Fred. He founded the business Finder. And it was one of the ones that I read before I decided to do it. He was talking about he did 500 days at that point, and he was just talking about how he's just hit a whole new level of success. And
really,
yeah. And I wish my younger self would have recognized, hey, this is a problem for you. Just don't do it, and see where I would have gotten to.
Yeah,
like you literally. And whether you, like, I didn't get hangovers. Well, I didn't think I got hangovers, but...
A lot of people probably say, I used to say that as well.
Yeah, but I definitely, like, I read 10 pages an hour faster at the moment. Yeah, so my readings, I'll be reading books at probably about 8 to 10 pages an hour faster. So probably about 13, 14%.
Incredible.
Quicker. Yeah, like my cognitive function on math is substantially quicker. Because you kind of, for the first couple of hours of the morning after you drink, even a little bit, I guess I've kind of noticed it stems from tiredness because you just don't sleep well on it. And when you're having a bottle of wine every night, you're not sleeping as good as you could. So you need more sleep. So you're tired when you wake up, and then you're dragging that anchor around. It's
a negative cycle. Like I've drunk more probably in this last, let's say 3 months, like consistently, than I have in the last 6 years. Like I'm not a big drinker, but this last 3 months, I've had a whole heap of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Then I just had 5 days camping where I drank from 9 a.m. till 8 p.m.
Yeah.
But one thing I always notice, and I use a Whoop, or you can use any sort of fitness thing. My heart rate, so my average heart rate while I'm resting is about 39 to 41 beats per minute.
Yeah.
When I'm drinking, that goes up to 45 to 47.
I noticed that too, because mine went from like 58 down to 45.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
And like even now, like coming off the back of, I haven't had a drink since Monday. I sound like a bloody addiction, but like I had a heap of beers until Monday, and I still feel mentally slow. Like I don't feel as alert. It feels like there's a fog in my brain.
Yeah.
And I remember that used to be just normal for me.
Yeah.
And it's not until you go, and I think we were talking before, like 2.5 months before it really lifts, and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's the big
feel this
thing.
Good.
Is you really and as we were talking, like I kind of think that if you've thought, hey, I wouldn't mind giving non-drinking a go, or if you have to put limitations on your drinking, like it's a bit like money. You can't hide it from yourself. Like if you got a problem with gambling, you can say whatever you want to anyone else. But at the end of the day, you got a problem with gambling. You should do something about it. Like if you got a problem with drinking, it's just one of those things. It's nothing to be like embarrassed or ashamed about. It's just part of life. But you've got to want to do something about it. So I would think that if anyone has said, oh, I should, I probably drink a bit too much, chances are you drink way too fucking much.
Yeah.
And you I went and saw because the big thing is I've never had a problem asking people for help.
Yep.
So I went and saw a counsellor in the city. And I was like, look, this is the situation. He said, I would think that a 6 month reset for you. I was like, I'll do 2.
Compromise. Let's meet in the middle. Yeah. Just under.
That's right. So he said 6 months. I was like, I'll do 2. And then I've had a couple of people that have been in my life professionally and personally that have stopped drinking. And a couple of them I really admire, really successful business people. Because I always thought it was a business thing that you had to go out and drink when you had clients around and stuff like that. So, he's based in LA. I had a really good chat with him. And he's like, mate, he said, if someone doesn't want to work with you professionally because you won't go out and get drunk with them, he said, you don't want to work with that type of person. 100%. And I was like, oh, that's a good point. So I think, recognizing that and asking for help is the first step, because you've really got to want to do it. Because every person around you, well, most people around you, especially if you're a bloke with mates, will be like, just have one.
Yep.
And you're like, that's the fucking problem.
Exactly.
Like, one is the problem, because it's, in my view, I kind of always had the mindset that one's too many and 10's not enough.
It's where you get happy, right? Once you've had one, you're starting to loosen up and you're like, oh, maybe this whole evening or whenever you're doing it's going to get better if I have 2, 3, and next minute you don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, that's right. You'd be like, oh, I need to come up with a new idea or something. I'll have a bottle of wine. And it's like, that's...
Very bad idea.
Yeah, and they're all horrible ideas. So I think that they're the two big things, like, you know, put your hand up, tell people that are really invested in you, like family, friends, parents, that you're going to do it.
So have that support network.
Build a support network before you do it.
Yeah,
is really, really key, because otherwise, if you don't have those people around you, it'll be made substantially more difficult.
And do you believe telling them why you're looking to do it, to give them that buy-in? Because I know for myself, when I stopped drinking 6 years ago, I didn't tell people why.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't confident enough in myself, and I knew I was a fucking rubber arm like most of us are. So I just lent on fitness challenges because it was easy to say, I'm doing a fitness challenge. That was my, I guess, excuse. Whereas I didn't really want to tell people, you know, all the bad things that I did when I was on the drink.
Yeah, I was like, as you know, like, I'm a pretty straight up person.
Yeah.
I don't show I'm not very great with empathy, so I don't show a lot of empathy with myself. So with people, I'd be like, look, I drink way too much. I'm trying to, you know, have a break from it.
Yeah.
And you get people that are like, that try and be like, just have a sip, just have just have one glass of wine. And you're like, and as long as you're firm with them, people usually will respect that, because saying yes, especially in a social scene to drinking, is 10 times easier than saying no.
100%. And generally the people that are putting the pressure on you, it's more of a reflection of them.
Exactly. I had that. I had that with someone at dinner once. They said, "What? So you're not going to drink?" And I was like, "If that affects you, like, and you want to leave because I'm not drinking, that's completely fine.
Yeah.
Like, that's up to you if you want to do that." He's like, "Well, no, it's just what?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you're not forming words, mate.
You don't make any sense."
Yeah. So, yeah, I think just because people all inherently want to help people.
Yep.
So when I say, look, well, I was drinking too much and I'm having a break, people are, oh, that's really good. You know, that's kind of good to do. But so that was my approach.
Did you feel when you did it? Because I know a lot of people, like myself included, I found it hard to be honest about why I was stopping drinking, because I was worried about fear of judgment or whatever at that point in time. Did you find it hard? Or, I know you said you were pretty straightforward in that, but were there ever moments where you questioned it? Or still at this point?
I absolutely, at the start, yes. There were times where I was like, oh, you know, maybe I'll just have one. But now, like, once you kind of kick through that kind of 65, 75 day mark, I would say that's when you really start to notice the benefits.
Yeah.
So, I don't anymore. Like, you know, I'll go out and... I was out with a friend a couple of weeks ago. It was his birthday. We went up to Maya Mexican, had dinner.
Cracking up there.
Very nice. They don't cater very well to people that don't drink.
Yeah.
But, because there's only so much fucking soda lime bitters you can have.
Fair.
But, you know, they wanted to kick on, and it was like midnight, and I just went home. I still had a good night. And you maybe have to have a bit of a trade-off in the fact that you won't get on their page, but you're going to have a substantially better morning.
100%.
So, you kind of have to be playing the long game.
Always.
Yeah, because alcohol is really
short-term.
Short-term effect. You know, it's not as short as, cocaine, but you'll be drunk for 4 or 5 hours. You know,
yep.
Or if you have a big lunch, you'll be drunk till 10 o'clock at night. And if you've been drinking from 12 till midnight, if you go on a 12-hour drink, and and I've done it. Like a friend of mine, we were in Shanghai, and between us, we had 7 bottles of wine.
Jesus
over
Christ.
about from lunch till just before dinner.
Yeah.
At a restaurant there, and like we were really rusty for about 3 days.
Yep.
So you got to think, 12 hours against 36 hours. So I kind of think that, and it's funny, you only start thinking about the math then once you're off it.
Yep.
Because it is alcohol is extremely short-sighted in terms of its effect to the especially if you're having quite a bit out.
Yeah.
If you're having one, no problem. But if you struggle, like if you're going out and having a big night, like you're paying for it for a couple of days.
100%.
So that's kind of the way. When I'm out and socializing and people are drinking, and you kind of think, fuck, I'd love to be on the page that they're on. I kind of just think, well, tomorrow morning when I'm up and going for a run, I'll be feeling a lot better than they will be then, and they'll be wishing they were on my page.
Correct. Because it's that mindset where you're like, oh, but it's just I sometimes justify it to myself where I'm like, oh, it's going to be an awesome time. You never get time back, moments back, but it's also like, okay, well, I can still enjoy this moment right now, but I'm also going to be able to enjoy the next 4 days much better than most people can.
100%. And I think that that thought process kind of was a big help for me.
Yep.
By thinking, well, because that way it softens the blow for yourself a little bit.
Yep.
And you can say that selfishly, but you can say whatever you need to tell yourself to stick to a goal.
True.
But yeah, that thought process definitely helped me. Because it was funny, I was going to have a drink on my birthday on the 6th of September, which was the 6th month. Because I was like, okay, I've done the 6th month as the councillor said in town. And then I was like, do you know what? 6 months is 0.5 of a year. Like, that is a real fucking annoying number to have a decimal place.
So it becomes competitive.
So then it becomes competitive because now I'm like, all right, I've got to do 12 months because that's a whole year.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, I think, and like I've got an app that sends me a push notification every day at 6 o'clock because you kind of fill out a bit of information as when would you typically have your first wine on a day.
6 a.m. And that push notification comes
yeah. Depending on the day. But and it's actually quite good because it works out like...
What's that app called?
It's called... it's actually called I Am Sober. And so it also... The more valuable thing that it tracks is actually how much hours on average you haven't stayed drunk.
Yeah, right.
So although it's like $7,500, drinking every day, I technically lost 2 hours a day through... 2
hours a day, so that's 14 hours a week.
Well, you kind of... If you have a bottle of wine, you're drunk for probably 2 hours before you go to bed. So...
14 hours a week. What do you reckon you're doing with that extra 14 hours a week?
I'm punching out a book most, if not every week, every fortnight. I'm having substantially better conversations with my wife. I'm kind of, it's like, time's a bit like money. You always find a way to spend it as long as you spend it productively. So there's heaps of stuff. Like, so I've got drum kits. I've got the drums set up at home again.
Boom.
So, I've got my electric drums there. So bang around on those. Just, or we're working on a new... I'm helping a friend with a new concept. So, I'm doing a bit of financial modelling for him and helping out with that.
Yep.
So you find a way to just spend it more productively.
Yeah.
And, so... I can't. It's funny. You've got, everyone says, "Well, when will you have another drink?" And it's like, I've kind of hit that point where the upside of it doesn't really outweigh the downside for me.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine who's Brisbane, who I met in the office, like he did 2 years off and then had a drink, and then he hasn't drank again because he said, once your body's reset itself. He said, if you remember the first time you were drunk as a teenager, it was a fucking horrible experience. but you keep going because everyone's keeping going.
Yeah.
And he said, and I had a couple of glasses of wine, champagne with him and his wife. They were flying, can't remember what airline. I think they were on Emirates, and they were up front. And we were like, oh, we'll have, we'll have champagne. And he said, I got the biggest headache. I just felt horrible. It was a really, really uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah.
And probably had a bit to do with the altitude. But he said, he's drunk, once. And he said, it was like, I don't need to do that. Like,
It's funny, and I sort of want to tie this into the financial stuff you're talking about. It's like that model, and I'm really fascinated, which is why I want to have you back on to talk about that, but that 60, 15, 15, 10. So when you break it down, you're like, shit, like it could be tough right at the start because no one else is accountable for their money, or most people aren't, right?
No.
But once you then get, 5-10 years down the track and you're sorted, you're like, oh, that was worth it. Just probably
exactly. And do you know what? That's actually a really good lead, because when I was working with you last year and we wrote that 10-year plan and we sat down with Nick and we went through it at lunch, that's when it cost me 200 burpees. But I was like putting that 10-year plan together, and I kept coming back to that when I was thinking about, should I do a bit of a hiatus on alcohol? Should I not? And then I was like, well, if I look at that 10-year plan and what I wanted to achieve, and there are big targets on there, because that's just my nature, like, alcohol doesn't support any of those things.
Yeah.
Like, the assets under management that we want to have as a family and everything else, there's no time to be dropping, 475 hours within 6 months only, 7 months now, to achieve that. So
475 hours.
Yeah, that's what the app says.
Jesus.
428 hours is how much time I would have spent having a bottle of wine every night.
That
Because you're drunk for about 2 hours before you go to
yeah,
bed.
I just think about, like, for me, like, one of the things that, I've got it on the fridge there is, like, I've committed to raising my standard, because I sort of work really hard, raise my standards until it becomes just normal.
Exactly, me too.
And I've been coasting for about 18 months, so I've been like, it's game time, and it's really uncomfortable because I'm struggling to, not struggling, but it's a real challenge for me to get it done.
Yeah.
And obviously having had the amount of alcohol I've had has also made shit really challenging.
And that's just in the when I would be drinking from like 6:30 to 8:30 type thing. That's not from the lack of production.
Correct.
In the morning, or having to have a sleep on a Saturday because I had a big Friday night and the kids are asleep, so I'll have a sleep as well.
Mate,
and that's more valuable than the money. Like I said, I can spend the money. I can go into the city and buy a watch now.
Yeah.
But I can never, like, that time has really helped. And, like, I'm sure Nick would back this up. Like, getting that time back and being able to deploy it meaningfully because you're cognitively aware. Like, I was probably a little bit, in terms of mood, on a bit of like an ECG machine at points because you're tired, and you've got two little kids running around, or we had a stressful business, and like it's funny now. Like when someone says, "Oh, we've got a lot of stress coming up. Like, what do you reckon we should do?" And I'm like, "Well, the first thing you should do is stop drinking, because if you've got a big stressful period coming up in your life that you know about."
Maximize your time.
Maximize your time and your alertness, because if you've got something that's keeping you up at night, you're going to need to get better quality sleep with lesser amount of time being sleep. Alcohol's not going to help that. In fact, I can't think, apart from maybe one or two things, I can't think of anything that in reflection that alcohol will actually help with. Like, in big quantities.
Yeah.
Like if you're a person that can have one glass of wine at dinner and enjoy that, then I'm jealous of you.
Yeah.
Because that's fantastic. Because that's one thing I missed, having a glass of wine when you have a really nice meal and the way they accompany and the flavors talk to each other. That is 100% missed by me.
And it's even being able to acknowledge that you can't have one glass, because a lot of blokes go, like, I coach a lot of fucking people who have alcohol problems, and they go, I'll just cut it down to one, and you're like, it's not going to work, buddy.
No way.
No
Once
way.
that seal's broken, like, and it's not like I was a non-functioning person. Like, I was still highly functional. You know, we won a couple of awards with the old business and stuff like that, and a few other things. So, like, I was just able to function still at a high level from a low base.
And that's where you tie it back into what you were saying before. It's like, imagine what you could achieve.
Oh,
So I always think it back to, you know, once again, I guess the money. So you think about compounding interest, right?
Yeah.
And if you get in early and what it can amount to, the same as with like self-development, relationships, everything else that you could spend that 425 hours doing, and the compound effect of that over the course of your life is phenomenal. Like,
Exactly.
and people miss that. And I think a lot, especially with the general demographic of with the Man That Can project is generally at 25 to 34. Like most of those guys, this is where you should be like really thinking about what you want your life to look like in 10 years time. Or
Yeah, and I think that this is like, I was probably too late to it. I would have liked to have done this, because it's not that I regret ever drinking. I definitely think of that there would have been, firstly, if you work this $7,500 at 7 months and multiply that over 10 years, we'd be probably driving a different car. But
when you put it like that, how does it make you feel?
Oh, look, when I worked it out, and I was like, well, I'm 35. If I can get to 45, I'd definitely buy myself. There's a couple of nice watches that are just stupidly expensive, but I'd probably just, I don't think I'd spend 100, but that'd be like 90 grand. But if Nick, and I don't think my wife would not approve of it, because like it'd be such a big milestone. But having said that, I'm not doing it for the money, because you never would get this far without, just from a monetary point of view.
So
but I do think
always but even going back to that, right? So like, was it off the back of that session with the counsellor that you were like, right, I'm gonna go, or what was sort of, if you feel comfortable sharing, what it was for you that sort of made you go, right, I'm actually committing to stopping? Because a lot of people, probably after a severe hangover, myself included, go, I'm not drinking again. We've all been guilty of it. And
funnily enough,
3 days later,
after a big hangover.
Oh really?
No, it wasn't. I was like, I did the 10-year plan with you, and I was really looking at that, and we were having a little bit of issues with the company that we invested in, and I was like, this is going to be a tricky period. I think I'm going to stop for the next 30 days to just try and get my mind in order. And then, it just kept going from there. So this was only going to be like a 30, 60 day. I can't remember if it was 30 or 60, but it was only going to be a pretty short stint. But, I noticed, because I was home a lot, like I did 100 odd flights last year. And I was always away from Nick. So it was, the changes, like they were always sporadic because I was in and out. And nothing will make you want to drink more than doing 100 flights a year and being in and out of airport lounges. And, traveling, and you'd go down and you'd sit at the bar and eat. And you'd sit in great restaurants, but you'd be at the bar.
Do you feel if you had still been traveling, it would have been
a lot harder? Yeah. I was kissed on the dick for the timing.
Well, for a lot of people, COVID's not been enjoyable, but for you, it worked out well in that regard.
Yeah, in that regard, I was really fortunate. The timing of closing down, and everything in life is timing based. In my opinion. So shutting down restaurants and shutting down the ability to socialise took away a huge barrier that would always be the pressure on you to have to drink. So I was that was a big plus for me. Then, because I've got a rubber arm, like most guys do. Like, if your friends are out drinking, they don't have to really push too hard for you.
So you want to be?
Yeah, that's right. Is it cold? That would be my main question. Or it would be, they were going to be, I'd be like, you got a rosé?
Yeah.
So the timing was brilliant to do it. To be honest, like that would unquestionably be the shot in the arm that gave me that platform. because you kind of do have to hermit yourself a little bit for the first 4 weeks because you do get pretty moody.
Which it's changing habits and patterns, right?
Yeah, and breaking the habit. And my habit was coming home and having opening a bottle of wine as soon. I'd kiss everyone hello, go to the fridge or go to the wine, the drinks trolley, grab a wine and open that and pour one for Nick and I, and then we talk about our day. So
it's almost like coffee where it's attached to a cool moment in your day as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So and like I recognized that early, so I was like, okay, when I make lemonade soda lemon bitters. I've got to make it with soda cordial into a cocktail shaker, throwing ice in, pouring in the soda and giving it a shake. Like I needed to have, like I'm a pretty process driven person. I needed a process so that took that edge off to keep my hands busy.
Yeah.
And granted, I didn't see any health benefits for the first few weeks. I was drinking so much soda lime and bitters. It was ridiculous. There was so much sugar in that thing. I went up in kilos because like during the day I'd have like 4 of those Bundaberg soda lime and bitters cans thing, and each of them was like 52% of your daily intake of sugar. So I was having like way too much sugar, but I had to replace it with something.
Yeah, I think that's important. People try to just take away rather than going, well, you always need something to focus on. If you're just trying to take away, you're still focusing on what it might be. It's like, I don't want to drink. You're fucking making your palate.
You're making yourself, you're sitting and we used to have so much wine at home. We've slowly given it all away.
I haven't seen any bottles coming over
here. I haven't seen it. But most of it went to my sister, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I talking with it was funny, it was twofold. It was writing out the 10-year plan with you and seeing what we want to achieve, and then getting some strategies from the counsellor in town on how to achieve the break.
Yeah.
You know, some people, and like I've tried it before and I was like, I'll work out more when I wanted to have a break in the past. But if you work out in the morning, you still come home and you're like, I want to drink.
Yep.
You're not feeling that. You need to build what works for me, and it's different for everyone, is I had to build a habit for when I would normally drink.
Yep.
So there's no point saying I'm going to exercise more. Unless you're exercising when you drink, that may work. But for me, I had to do something with my hands to replace that habit.
So you think about that then, like, let's say over 12 months, let's say it's about 700 hours you might get back.
Yeah.
So start thinking about things that you could set yourself up to focus on. Like it might be reading. You're saying you're reading a lot more.
I've always wanted to learn the piano.
Find something that you can then focus on. So instead of focusing on not drinking, you go, I can't wait to get home to Salvi.
But you get, I think it was like 3 months into it, and Nick and I were talking, and we were like, and I was like, you just don't even think about it anymore.
Yep.
And it was great because all the good restaurants in Brisbane started to do takeaway during COVID.
Yep.
So it was really helpful that Nick would have 1 or 2 glasses of wine at home when we'd get deliveries from like Echo or something like that. So that was a real nice kind of easing into being back around people who were drinking. And me, like, you know, now I drink a lot of tea at home because, again, there's a process to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The process king.
I do like it. It makes me feel comfortable. I know, it's weird, but yeah. So I think that's pretty... Building that, whatever you need to replace the habit, I think is really important. And something you can do at the time when you're doing it.
So obviously, you know, then recapping, like you would say that first step is obviously being aware of whether you feel it's a problem for you or not, and then being okay with putting your hand up for help, and then obviously 100%. Working out what you could then replace it with or focus on. What else would you say has helped you in your process to, you know, doing 7 months off now and obviously working towards that 12-month milestone? You
really do start to see benefits in a lot of areas of your life. And like we were talking before, you know, you can't eat an elephant one bite at a time. And you start to see incremental benefits over relationships, over your work, over your ability to train. Like, I can train heaps harder now.
Yeah.
I jumped in the pool the other day for the first time since a big night, actually, in February after I did the 2K Cold Classic.
I remember when you were training for that. Yep.
And like, I punched out a K and a half, and I felt 10 times better than what I did when I was training for a 2K ocean swim. So you really do start to see a lot of incremental benefits that, like compound interest, really do start to add up. Like Nick and I, our conversations and our communication is 10 times better than what it was when I was drinking, because you're really clear and you're not kind of dragging that anchor around, or that anxiety of, well, I can't have a meaningful conversation with you unless we're having alcohol.
Yeah. So we can sit down and set that standard and relax. But
yeah,
I think that's such an important point to sort of think about, as well as like you were saying, touched on earlier. It's like it's such a short-term fix. Alcohol like gives you that, I guess, instant gratification in a way, whether it's with a conversation and an experience or whatever. But it has negative ripple effects in other aspects of your life. And if we look at, I always like to tie things back into like men's health statistics, and we look at like suicide, death by suicide, and finances is a fucking huge one. Relationship breakdown, which then ties into communication with your partner.
Yeah, and finances into drinking. Like drinking, as I can well prove, drinking isn't cheap.
Yeah.
And everything that goes on with drinking, like, eating shitty or whatever you may do when you drink, it's not just alcohol that you're blowing money on. So, like, if you're struggling financially, the first thing that you can do without is dropping alcohol. Because it's not going to help you either. It's not going to help you get more money because you can't think clearly. Like, your relationship, if you're stressed at all, alcohol is never, like, we've got a family friend and he's really stressed about something. But he's like, what do you reckon I should do? I was like, well, before you do anything, just stop drinking. I was like, what are you drinking at night? He's like, probably about 5 scotches a night. I was like, well, fuck. Yeah. I'm like, stop doing that. That's automatically going to improve you the next day. Like, you drop that, that's going to help straight away.
You're fine. Like, and a lot of people don't put that. And you think about this, right? Like, there's always people who, and I always go back into this as like, how we get better is we have to invest in ourselves, and whether that's time, money, skill share, whatever it is, like, to do that. But that's the way you get better. And if money is the area that you lack, like, I remember the first time I invested in myself was $25, and for me, I was tossing up, do I get a carton of gold, or what do I buy this ticket? And I was dead broke at that time. But that $25 investment just completely changed my life. So, whether you were drinking a bottle a day like you were, and so far it's, but it's saying 12 months, it might save you $20K, which is a fucking lot of money. For some people, it might only be $4K, others it might be more.
$4,000 is still a lot of money.
Oh, exactly. You could do a lot of stuff with that.
A $4K is a family holiday or a holiday away with your partner.
Correct. Exactly. So I think it's going back to what you were saying about play the long game, right? Think about, and I guess it ties into when you do a 10-year vision, or think about what you actually want from your life. What is it going to take for you to get there? Like, what do you have to invest in, or what can you do to improve your relationship or your mateships even? It might just be taking the mates out for a nice lunch without drinking. Like,
And again, it's like, we wrote that 10-year plan, and the 10-year goals at the back end of it are really, really big. But when they're broken down into bite-sized pieces, they're not unachievable. And so it's like, okay, the easiest way to achieve this will be being able to focus and be productive all the time. So it just didn't fit with what I wanted to achieve. From finance goals, relationship goals, and I didn't want my son or my daughter to think that it's normal to come home from work and have a bottle of wine. And it's actually quite funny, and I shit you not, this is a true story. Nick was in Woolies, and when Seb was like 18 months old, she was walking down one of the aisles that have like the knickknacks, like glasses, Tupperware. They had stemless wine glasses with the packaging had wine, so it looked like it was in the glass. And Seb pointed up to that and went, "Dad."
Really?
Yeah. And Nick was like, I just need to tell you about this. And I was like, oh fuck, that's not very
It's a
good.
bad correlation.
Bad correlation. So I didn't want Seb to come home and think, hey, it's normal to have a bottle of wine every night.
Yep.
Because that's not normal. Like
Yep.
that's not. Sorry, normal's not the bad word. That's not healthy.
Yep.
It's not good for relationships. It's not good for being present in the moment. It's not great for.
Yep.
Apart from the alcohol companies, it's not great for anyone.
Yeah. And if you tie it into why, doing it for yourself first, the ripple effect for everything else we've sort of discussed in this
Yeah, but you've got to
podcast.
want to do it. As
Yeah.
we always said, like
100%.
when I said there was about if anyone needed help, I'm happy to help them come and see you. Like the person who's making the change
Yep.
has to want to make the change.
Yep.
It can't be driven by your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your husband or your wife or anyone else.
Yep.
You've got to
want to do it.
You've got to, I don't know the term man up, but you've got to balls up and say, I don't want this in my
Fucking
life
oath.
anymore. And once you say that, then that's the most powerful thing you can do because
Yep.
you've said, I don't want this in my life anymore.
Yep.
Tell the people that you know will support you.
Yep.
And they'll help you out. Mate, we got more T2 at our house than what we know what to do with. Because Nick went, I found a tea that I liked.
Yeah.
And, she went and bought all these, we've got more orange boxes. It's out of control, our butler's pantry.
That's so good.
She's, and she bought me this really nice tea, this beautiful tea set that I use every night.
Yep.
There's people, if no one in your life is going to be bummed out that you've stopped drinking, because if you think you drink too much, everyone around you thinks you drink way too much.
Yeah, especially if you're in a relationship.
You downplay it yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's always that denial.
Yeah. Most people drink a couple of glasses of wine a night.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between 2 and 6. Like a bottle's what? 5. I used to joke that a bottle was 4 glasses of wine. But they're big bloody glasses.
Yeah. Like a glass of, but for you, like looking towards wrapping it up, like what is the single or probably the most beneficial thing that's come off the back of this?
Mental stability.
Mental
Without
stability.
a doubt. Mental being stable in my brain and having a much more leveled emotional sort of needle.
Yeah.
You definitely remove so many of the dips that you get when you drink.
Fucking
You got to remember, you're only happy for a few hours, and when you're no one's happy hungover.
No. Shit, no.
That's right.
Not a chance, unless you're eating that nice...
But even that's short lived,
Break
because
your
then you got to
wrap.
work
Yeah,
that shit
yeah,
off.
yeah.
And then you hop on the bike
Yeah.
with you, I'm like, that was only 200 calories.
What?
Yeah.
It's not even one glass of bread. Or
Yeah.
probably half.
So that would be the big thing. The mental, the cognitive function and the benefits it has on your relationships that matter.
Yeah.
And it's going to affect relationships that don't matter because you've got friends that maybe you're drinking buddies and
Yep.
they may not think you're as fun anymore, but fuck them.
Yeah, well, exactly. You fucking put yourself first and what you want for your life. That's
Exactly.
why most people aren't.
Sometimes you got to cut those
Yeah.
eggs out.
And it's hard to do, but it's rewarding.
Yeah,
Like,
and if they're really good mates,
they'll come back around.
they'll come back around. You can still go out for dinner, or you can still go for breakfast, go for surfs. But
Yeah.
you may drop a few people, but sometimes it's good to lose some
Well,
weight.
make space for more decent
Exactly.
people, right?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And last question, which I always, and you probably heard that from a podcast, but I always ask the blokes at the end, unscripted, what's your definition of being a man, or what does that mean to you?
Being a man to me is about acting accordingly and taking responsibility for what you can control and letting go of and not getting anxious about what you can't control, because shit's always going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But if controlling and being responsible for what's in your power,
Yep.
and acting and appreciating that level of responsibility that you have, especially when you start to get into when you've got kids and stuff like that. That was a big driver for me to not be drinking a bottle of wine a night.
to make some changes. And I've got a ton out of this, and I can't wait to listen to it back over. But where can people find you if they want to reach out? And
I'll just get my number from you.
Yeah,
that's fine.
I'm
happy to talk to anyone about it because I haven't had a negative impact on it at all, and no one's kind of said that they're not seeing the better side of me.
Yeah,
like
that's
there's
cool.
a lot of upside for it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And for that, you can also find you in the Facebook group, Sam Hardy.
Yep.
You're pretty active in there, which is cool. But appreciate you coming on, mate. And I definitely want to have you back on probably at least 2 times. One time after you've had that first drink, if it happens.
I don't even know if it'll happen. I just can't see, because again, it's like 1 is such a shitty number.
Yeah.
Because and I don't want to do 10.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it'll happen. To be honest, like a friend of Dad's, he gave up alcohol for Lent 22 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the same with Amy's parents. Haven't drunk for about 8 and 10 years, I think it is. So
yeah.
They don't miss it at all.
And there's some great non-alcoholic spirits coming on board. Like, I think it's Limes. They do like they do a single malt. They do an American bourbon.
Really?
Yeah, they do a American bourbon. They do a couple of gins. They do Negroni. Tastes just like the real thing. It's a fucking expensive way to do it though, because it's just really expensive cordial essentially.
Yeah, so if you're gonna drink
I had a bottle of it one night and I was like, do you know what? That was it was a gin. I was drinking gin and sodas, but it was non-alcoholic gin. It was just like it was just like alcohol, except after about 4 of them, when you stand up, you can continue to walk.
you're good.
Yeah.
You can't work sense.
And you have the same amount. You have like chocolate over ice. It's really nice. And
cool.
It's a great substitute. If you really enjoy the flavor, it's a great substitute. But it does get expensive because you can continue to go until the bottle's gone because it doesn't have that the side effect.
The sway on effect.
Yeah.
100%.
But they're great.
And then the second one will be to get you on to talk about the finances. I think that would be awesome to learn about how you've gone about doing that, because it's definitely one of the things that myself and I know a lot of guys need a better understanding with. You can never know too much around the financial side.
Yeah, and I'm happy to share what we do as a family to make sure that all runs properly.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
Thanks for coming on, mate.
Excellent.
So guys, if you got as much out of that episode as I did from having that chat with Sam, please make sure you share it with someone who will get value from it. A man who may be wanting to give up alcohol or learn some lessons that Sam has along the way. And like I said, if you want to reach out to Sam, he's available in the Facebook group, or you can search him on social media at Sam Hardy, or just reach out to me and I can put you in contact with him. Alternatively, guys, remember, if you haven't heard about the Man That Can Project Inner Circle, it is live now. Okay, and you can find out more information at the website, themanthatcanproject.com/inner circle. It is buzzing with energy and excitement, and a lot of men are creating more momentum in their life as a result of that. So thank you guys for tuning in. And remember, I love seeing you guys share the episode. So if you did get value, please share it, tag, and maybe even share a little bit about what you took away from the episode. Have a great evening and see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Man That Can Project podcast. My name is Lachlan Stuart, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please take a moment to rate and review the Man That Can Project on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our newest episodes. We'll see you again next time.